What's the most heartbreaking thing you've seen at a wedding? I was invited to a coworker's wedding. We weren't super close, but she had always been kind to me at the office, so I accepted. It was a small, beautiful venue by the lake, white flowers everywhere. Soft music, kind of day you see in magazines. Guests were laughing, clinking glasses, and taking photos with the bride and groom. But at the very edge of the reception, I noticed a table in the corner, with only one guest. She was an older woman, maybe late 60s, in a pale blue dress that had clearly been chosen with care. Her hair was perfectly styled, makeup subtle but elegant. In front of her sat a glass of water and a small purse. She wasn't eating, wasn't talking, just sitting there, looking around with the kind of smile that tries too hard. I figured she might be waiting for someone, so I went over and asked if she'd like company. She smiled politely and said, "Thank you, dear, but I'm fine." Still, something about her tone made me linger. The music swelled as the bride and groom took to the dance floor. Guests gathered around, phones out, cheering. The woman at the corner table clapped softly, then reached into her purse. She pulled out a small, worn photograph. It was of a young man in a tuxedo, standing with a bride in a white gown. But it wasn't today's couple. Her hands trembled as she traced the edge of the photo. Couldn't help myself. "Is that someone you know?" I asked gently. She looked up at me with eyes that seemed older than her years and said, "That was my son, his wedding day, 20 years ago today." I sat down beside her. She told me his name was Daniel. He'd been full of life, the kind of man who remembered everyone's birthdays, who danced like nobody was watching. 3 months after his wedding, he was killed in a car accident on his way home from work. My throat tightened. She explained that she'd been invited to today's wedding because the bride was Daniel's childhood friend. She wanted me here, the woman said, so I wouldn't feel alone on this date. But when she arrived, she realized she didn't really know anyone anymore. Friends had moved away, relatives had drifted apart. The bride had been busy with guests, and she didn't want to bother her. "So," she said softly, "I just sit here and watch other people's happiness." Something inside me ached. I stood up, walked to the DJ, and whispered something in his ear. Then I went over to the bride. I told her about the woman in the corner. The bride's eyes filled with tears. She immediately took the microphone and said, "Before we continue, I want to honor someone very special here tonight." She walked over, took the woman's hand, and led her to the center of the dance floor. The DJ started playing a slow, familiar song, the same one from Daniel's wedding video. Everyone stepped aside as the bride hugged her tightly. "Tonight, you're not alone," she whispered loud enough for those near to hear. The woman tried to protest, but the bride wouldn't let go. Then, to everyone's surprise, the groom stepped forward and offered his hand. "May I have this dance?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. They danced slowly, the bride holding one of her hands, the groom holding the other. Guests wiped their eyes, phones forgotten. After the song ended, the bride announced, "This day is about love, all the love we've had, and the love we still carry for those we've lost." The woman was crying openly now, but smiling too. "Thank you," she said, over and over. For the rest of the evening, she wasn't alone. People came by to talk, to share stories, to make her laugh. She even joined a group dance, her pale blue dress twirling under the lights. As I left that night, I saw her standing by the lake, the photo still in her hand. She caught my eye and said, "It's been 20 years since anyone danced with me on this day." I told her she deserved many more dances. She smiled a real smile this time and whispered, "Maybe now, I believe that." Sometimes the most memorable part of a wedding isn't the couple saying, "I do." It's the moment love reaches out to someone who thought it had forgotten them. And that night, in a little lakeside venue, love found its way back to a mother's heart.